You're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
Hello there, welcome to Beyond the Blast Doors, a show where we talk about movies, TV, comics, toys, cosplay. We are glad to have you part of our Star Wars conversation. This is episode 66, or we'd like to call Order 66. Now, normally we're live every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Central, but you know, the summertime, it's our busiest time, so we just get together whenever we can. You can listen to Beyond the Blast Doors on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and SoundCloud, of course, live on YouTube on Sundays. But we're doing a Saturday episode to celebrate the 4th of July, so we haven't had an opportunity yet, so happy 4th of July to you listening at home. And David Amalotti here, joined with David Gilbert, Jesse Buck. David, Jesse, my goodness, we're back together, and we got so much to talk about. But first things first, you had a good 4th of July celebration?
It was very exciting. Barbecued a little bit. Saw
Okay.
some of a little bit of piece of America explode with the fireworks. Nothing says Happy Birthday, America, like blowing up a little piece of it.
Jesse, did you spend your 4th of July outdoors watching fireworks or just staring at your framed Mandalorian poster?
I actually spent majority of the day at the good old Hobby Lobby until about 6 o'clock, and then I went home and immediately began binge watching Stranger Things Season 3. Fantastic. Whole different show, but I love it. And then, yeah, occasionally glancing up and staring at my exclusive The Mandalorian poster that I got at Celebration. I just got it framed. It's super nice. I think we tweeted it out last week.
Did you see the story from Making Star Wars News.net, or it's MakingStarWars.net, and I always get the website link confused with StarWarsNewsNet.com. Tripping over myself. The point is that there's Mandalorian merch that's apparently surfacing on Amazon right now, and it's like the helmet, and I think that there was a shirt with like IG-11 on it, but it might have just been Favreau's Instagram post.
You know, I'm part of a lot of different like forum groups and everything. One of them is actually Mandalorian costuming. And we actually had there was a post on there from one of the admins cautioning people not to make those purchases, simply because a good portion of them may not be real, right, or that they're basically fake product.
I believe it.
Which I totally believe, especially ones selling helmets and whatnot, especially in the costuming world and everything. It's people are like, "Oh, get your Mandalorian helmet for your cosplay." And it's just like, we've seen some shots of it. We haven't seen any close-ups. So don't waste your hard-earned money on any of this stuff yet until it comes out.
I'm really excited for it, despite all the potentially fake merch out there. I mean, I know Jesse is too. He's wearing the Mandalorian shirt again today, which I don't think he's taken off since he's gotten back from Celebration.
No,
but
probably hasn't been washed yet.
Yeah. David, what do we got on the show today? We got a lot of cool topics, right?
We do. We have Star Wars Target Vader 1, which I was a little on the fence about this comic book because I don't think we need so many Darth Vader stories after such a successful run from Charles Soule. We're going to talk Jedi Fallen Order, the video game. We got some new information on that. We have some new content that's now playable for Battlefront 2. A Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga video game. I guess what I'm really surprised about is how much video game talk we have in this show, because it's kind of been a part of the genre that we haven't been talking about a lot the last few years. We've talked about it a few times. Jedi Fallen Order is going to be the third game made for a platform since EA got the contract. So we'll be talking about all those things. But we'll start things off this episode that is audio exclusive. We're sharing our episode on YouTube, on SoundCloud, on Stitcher, and all those things. We have Jordan actually is in town from his new job. He's visiting, and we're like, we're not going to put him to work. We're still trying to figure out the bugs so that he can direct our show remotely. So no video for this episode, but that's okay. You don't need video to talk about Daisy Ridley and what she has recently said on Good Morning America, The Tonight Show, freaking USA Today. She is going off on episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. She's talking a little about The Last Jedi feedback, and I'm really curious to get into this with you. The big headline was the fact that she's saying that by the end of Rise of Skywalker, you are going to know the true story behind Rey's parents. And that could be who knows what that could mean. We could be sticking with what we have in The Last Jedi.
Could be completely trolling us that they are legitimately nothing.
Well, at this point,
scum.
she's had to spend enough time with Mark Hamill to know the finer art of tooling with fans, as they say in Last Jedi. I thought Jesse was going to say something.
No, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was getting ready. I was like, well, she's been spending time with Mark Hamill. So
are we pretty about like unanimous? Like this is going to be just playing with the fans, having fun for these last 6 months?
I don't know.
I want to say it's going to be 50-50. I think you're going to get little seeds of truth in there, little kernels of truth.
I mean, they're 100% going to be playing with us. The question is how much truth?
How much? I'm definitely interested. her feedback or her comments about the feedback on Last Jedi is kind of interesting, but I think it's going to be reserved a little bit because I'm certain that she can't get up there and be like blah 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 blah, you know, like and agree with a lot of the negative comments or points.
I want to keep myself safe from speculating too much about what could happen in this movie because I don't want to do that thing where I build a certain story up in my head and then it doesn't happen and then I feel empty inside.
Like The Last Jedi.
But Zori Bliss, that character has to have some ties. At least I think it'd be really cool if Zori Bliss is the pilot of that ship we see in Force Awakens flying away from a young Rey. We think we see that ship again in this Rise of Skywalker trailer. We think that Zori Bliss is the pilot of that ship. I think it would be really fascinating to see if there was a little bit more discussed in this movie. Gilbert made this point on a few occasions. JJ has a lot to tackle in a 2.5-hour movie, if it's even that long. And so maybe it is determined by JJ, you know what, Rian Johnson in a way took care of this in The Last Jedi. I have to figure out how I'm going to get Rey and Kylo to a final battle and have some resolution here to end this 9-movie arc. If you're going just by the saga films, I say 10 because I think Rogue One's good enough to be part of it. But that's just me. You know, it's a Star Wars story. Speaking of a grand battle.
For those who don't remember, David,
Yeah.
Zori Bliss is a new character played by Kerry Russell.
Right, she's the bounty hunter.
Because as a casual person on this podcast, I had no idea who the heck she was, and I just had to look her up. So for those listening at home who were just as lost as I was, Kerry Russell, new character, probably a bounty hunter, should be exciting.
I'm really proud of you for looking that up.
Thank you.
You know, doing your research. That's a good that's a very Nick Stewart move of you right there. Not to do any prep and just be like, oh, I'll just Google it during the show.
Well, let me move my meteorology stuff to this screen and my Reddit stuff to that screen and play with
I do miss having the live radar on during the show.
I do.
There was something special about that. Before you interrupted me, the segue that I was trying to make was the fact that there could be this grand battle at the end of episode 9. This, again, according to Daisy Ridley, talking about how that there is this grand lightsaber battle between Kylo and Rey. This is part of the conversation of that photo that we got in that Vanity Fair whole write-up. It's them, like, looks like that Kylo and Rey are dueling in the rain. What we assume is either on a ship or like maybe the remnants of the Death Star. They say that photo was just taken more so for fun. That image may not actually be an image from the movie or from an actual scene in the movie. Jesse, I feel cheated. This is almost like that scene of like Krennic walking through the water on Scarif in the Rogue One trailer. We never got that in the movie.
Well, you know, they did a lot of reshoots for Rogue One and everything, so I can see. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree because there's aspects of that you heard about with Rogue One that I was like, I actually kind of like that better. If they would have, you know, actually did that in the movie.
But what about
with
this?
With this, yeah, you know, we saw that photo early on, and I'm almost certain it was unanimous that everybody was like, they're fighting on top of the, you know, bits of, you know, the Death Star that, you know, hit the planet. I was sold on that, you know. So to hear that it was potentially just for like a photo shoot is a little disheartening.
I'm not necessarily opposed to it because, as you mentioned earlier, David, about building up a story in your mind, I think everybody did that for The Last Jedi. And I think Disney in general has gotten really good, especially with like the Marvel franchise, where they will put stuff in the trailers that very much drastically changes, even just a little bit. An example would be the Far From Home trailer came out, and when Peter is at that press conference, he's wearing his suit from Homecoming, and then in the movie, he's wearing his Endgame costume. So changing little things between the trailer and the movie, so we get that tease, that excitement that I want to go see this movie, but then they make little changes to it in the actual movie, so it's still surprising for the fans.
I think that's a really good point. I wonder, though, if it's different with the MCU because it's a continuity thing and they're trying not to give away too many things. A lot of Far From Home stuff was done before the release of Endgame
and such, yeah.
So I think there's maybe a difference there that I want to note, but I think it's still a very valid point. I really want a lightsaber battle. That's what I'm really hung up on. So am I a little annoyed that this is a false image potentially? Yeah, because I think it's really epic to bring the entire saga back to what I hope is actually Endor, the remnants of the second Death Star, Palpatine somehow connected there like a Horcrux. I don't know what to call it in the Star Wars world, but that's kind of like what I'm thinking of. It'd be like a Horcrux or what we saw with Momin You know, that spirit trapped in a helmet, you know, from the Darth Vader comic.
That would be really
Star
cool.
Wars, the paranormal activity.
Right? But at the very least, I want that epic saber battle. So I'm really cool that Daisy mentioned that, because something that we haven't gotten a lot of in the sequel trilogy, the clashing of lightsabers. I mean, we didn't really get one in The Last Jedi. It was just kind of against the Praetorian Guards. Which
You know, you're kind of
I'm not trying to whine about it, because like I think that scene was cool. But I think, you know, for me, when I come to a Star Wars movie, I want cool blaster fights. I like space battles. I like lightsabers. And those are like the 3 ingredients that I need. And a little mythology, a little morality.
Do you think this movie is just going to be like run one revelation after the other, trying to tie up loose ends?
I don't think so.
You know,
I think that JJ is stronger than that. I think that JJ, while he hasn't really closed out a series, he doesn't have the reputation for that. He's never really put himself in the situation to close something out. I think it'll be good.
one of the things we saw a lot of, like in The Force Awakens, you almost get like these little like you know, like when Rey touches the lightsaber in Maz Kanata, she kind of gets, you know, a series of images, you know, like you know, force visions and everything. And then, you know, in The Last Jedi, you get those moments, flashbacks between the confrontation and struggle between Mark Hamill and you know, Luke and Ben, Solo and everything.
Mm-hmm. So you're hoping that they throw.
I'm hoping maybe we'll see some of that to kind of maybe tie in some of those other questions. So then I think that would be kind of the easy way to maybe close some of that off.
There was a rumor going around for a while that Han Solo somehow appeared in The Rise of Skywalker, which I don't buy. But if that were to happen, the only way it would happen would be the flashback. I don't have a problem with it. I thought the Force Vision, for example, in The Force Awakens was very compelling. I thought it really worked for me. And to me, that set up the sequel trilogy in my mind. I'm like, okay, so the whole trilogy is going to be breaking down this, because we got some of the present, we got some of the past, and we think we get some of the future. And apparently that Kylo Ren scene in the Rise of Skywalker teaser is related to that. There's so much to dive in with this. I just think that this movie is doing a lot of firsts for Star Wars in general, because this is the first time I think that Star Wars is really trying to close a chapter here. I think even at the end of Return of the Jedi, Lucas knew at some point he was going to go back and try and do the prequels once the technology caught up. I mean, think about this. They're even editing the movie on set. I mean, to meet the deadlines, they were having an editor on location, putting these clips in to be like, okay, we need this shot back. We need another take of this shot. And while that's a practice that I'm hearing some that are like in the industry saying that they wish that was a practice used more often. It's new to Star Wars. Star Wars usually has like 2.5 years to do a movie. They lost a little bit of time because JJ came on so late.
Right. Firing Trevorrow.
Because Trevorrow got fired. So Trevorrow, we've never said that name consistently on this show. But nonetheless.
At the end of the day, through all the interviews that Daisy's done, she tells us that we'll be satisfied. So that gives me hope.
Yeah, because I think she's a fan at the end of the day, too. And she also talked about she's not surprised about the backlash from The Last Jedi just because she acknowledges the passion that some fans have. So if something doesn't meet their expectations, of course, they're going to be bummed. But basically, but whatever. Because at this point, there's no changing it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fans who do appreciate that movie and it enhanced their experience in the story. And I think that it's okay for her to bring it up. I think that a lot of the I don't know. I feel like the amount of bashing has really died down online. For example, maybe those people just got tired, their fingers got cramps. But I think it's more important just to celebrate it, because here we are about a half a year out of Rise of Skywalker. We're less than that from The Mandalorian. We're going to turn around. We're going to get Clone Wars, the final season. You're going to have Cassian Andor sometime, you think, early 2020. There's another series. Apparently, someone's saying out there that Dave Bautista is going to be Bane. So that would be really dope. David just has this shock of, is this a face of horror? Do you feel good about yourself?
It's horror. It's just
caressing yourself now.
It's not a casting I necessarily would have thought of, but I guess I can see it.
Would you be in? So Darth Bane, we know as the character in Legends and has been brought back into canon thanks to the Clone Wars, as the Sith who created the Rule of Two.
Yes.
And there's so much talk and hope that this first movie from Benioff and Weiss, writers of Game of Thrones TV series, that it's Age of the Old Republic. And they're hoping that it would tackle like the Sith Empire. Basically, what people want, because we've been deprived of lightsabers for so long, is like 1,000 blue and green lightsabers and 1,000 red lightsabers, and they all battle on screen.
I want something along the lines of the Phantom Menace scene on. Oh, now the plane's going to escape me.
You're killing me here.
I know.
What are you talking about? What's the scene you're talking about?
The lightsaber scene when they're on
Naboo?
No.
Are you talking about Attack of the Clones when it's Geonosis?
Yeah, I'm talking Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
wow.
yeah.
We're rusty. We're very rusty.
You were like 10 years off.
We are. Yep. We're.
There's a decade in between those movies.
Geonosis, and that's what I want.
All the Jedi running, all
Yeah.
the Sith running. Yeah.
That's
what we want. It would be cool, I would think, if you got that.
That was just embarrassing.
But then you would transition into the Rule of Two with Bane.
Uh-huh.
But Dave Bautista, like, does he have like the acting chops for that? Like to have like a character of that gravitas? Would there be like brand confusion because he's so integral with the
I don't think
Guardians of the Galaxy?
I think this is the opportunity for Dave Bautista, if this is really happening, to actually come into his own light, because he's what, a WWE wrestler who turned actor, kind of following in the Rock's image.
Yes.
Except more sci-fi, and he's really only done a couple roles.
Well, he's out in the comedy right now,
Right.
but
Stuber.
he doesn't have a big catalog yet, and the movies that he's most known for doesn't have a whole lot of lines.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his character in Guardians of the Galaxy isn't the most eloquent.
But his comedic timing is good.
It's
But
flawless.
we also know that Disney doesn't have an issue with casting relatively new characters. Look at Gina, who's going to be in the upcoming Mandalorian show.
Right.
She doesn't have that large of a movie background. I mean, her most notable role to me is Deadpool.
Which she had like what, one line?
She basically had maybe one or two lines in that. That was more like body language, like acting. But I mean, all the same, I'm still excited, for her and her character. The backstory that they gave for us at Celebration was very intriguing.
We need another amazing battle scene that ranks up there with the Battle of Helm's Deep, the opening to Gladiator. We need something at that level, and HBO promised that with Game of Thrones, and it most certainly didn't happen.
Yeah, it missed the mark for a lot of fans.
It would be really cool if Disney could open up a movie with a battle scene that could rival what they were giving us back in the early 2000s.
I thought Revenge of the Sith opened with a great battle. I
That
don't think
was one of my
it wasn't epic like those other ones that David just mentioned, but it would be fun to take that and complement that with an on-ground battle.
I might get a lot of backlash for this, but
Oh boy.
like my overall top favorite space battle in Star Wars is A New Hope. You can't beat that because it's what captures the imagination.
You
for
can
most
beat it with
early
Return
fans.
of the Jedi.
I like the Return of the Jedi
The Return
one,
of the Jedi
but
one is significantly better
but,
because
like-
the graphic, the visual effects was like a decade improved.
yeah, but like
All the turning of the ships, like so many more ships, Jesse.
I'm a huge fan of the Clone Wars era, and so that battle above Coruscant. I mean, just if you visualize things in your head of what's happening, ships coming down onto the planet, like crashing onto the planet.
I can buy that.
And just Arc 170 fighters. That's next to the Slave One. It's probably my favorite ship. So I actually really enjoy the opening cinematic for Revenge of the Sith. But I want more of that.
Okay, well, Jesse, maybe you should go get David some water because he keeps on laughing.
That's
He's
one of the
laughing
most
uncontrollably.
entertaining exchanges I've ever seen you two have on this program.
Dear God. Okay, well, we want to know what you think about, my gosh, we talked about so much just in that opening conversation. Ray, or as far as Daisy, really all of our comments. We talked a little bit about what we think about Dave Bautista being Bane again. That's a rumor that I think the guys at the hashtag show was promoting. I think comicbook.com was pushing it out there. That is not at all official. I think it's one of those stories to get clicks. But it's a rumor that seems really possible because, again, he's in the Disney family through the MCU. So very interesting to see if that would ever come to light. I really would love the Rule of Two explained on screen. If not movie, you know what? I think a Darth Bane 12-episode run would be pretty satisfying on Disney+. Coming up next here on Beyond the Blast Doors, episode 66, Order 66. Let's talk about some book and comic book news. We're going to do this pretty quickly. Not a whole lot. But I think it's important to mention the Target Vader #1 came out. This is a 6-issue run. Thompson writing, Mark Lemming doing the art on this one. Came out last week. And this was a great little treat right before 4th of July, guys, because I'm not a fan of whoring out Vader like Marvel has kind of done in the comics. We've gotten 2 25-issue runs. We have Vader in annual comics. We have this. I'm trying to think. I can't even remember this last Vader series we had. Vader Visions.
Yeah.
I was not a fan of that. And so here we go again with another, short, 6-issue run here with Vader. But I enjoyed the first issue. Pretty interesting to me. The premise is that the Empire is trying to hunt down this criminal organization called the Hidden Hand. And the Emperor especially not happy because Hidden Hand is buying weapons for the rebellion. And so it's Vader's responsibility to track down Hidden Hand. Meanwhile, Hidden Hand is hiring bounty hunters to hunt down Vader. So it's 6 issues long. This is oh, man. I would assume this is pre A New Hope. I should have double-checked that before I started talking on this episode.
Oh,
but
I would imagine so, yeah.
But I would say that we can say that these bounty hunters fail because Vader kind of continues on the movies. But it's pretty cool. You like it because we go to level 1313 on Coruscant. We spend about half of the comic thereabout. And so I think that you would enjoy that, especially the visual aesthetics, Jesse. So I think it's an okay issue. I'm going to follow the series until I lose interest. I bounced out of Vader Visions. I think it was the third Visions where like the fangirl on the Death Star kept bumping into Vader, had a crush on Vader. I just thought that was just not good. Not a good use of my money or time. That's okay.
How can you have a fangirl crush on Vader, though? I mean, he's a masked villain. You don't know what he's looked like. It's almost like you could be catfished.
Well, a lot of people.
I can understand how you could have a fangirl crush on him because he's got a reliable job, a steady income. He's not.
Here he goes again. The Empire is great for the galaxy.
It is.
And who doesn't like a man in armor?
Well, I will agree with that sentiment.
Also, you get Dengar in that issue, so you might enjoy that. It's always nice to see one of those OT bounty hunters make an appearance. This is what excites me. Go
This
ahead.
one didn't call to me.
Oh, this didn't call to you
This
at all?
didn't call to me.
Okay, well, I mean that's okay. Not every comic's gonna stick.
They're trying to turn Vader too much into like an anti-hero versus a villain.
Well, and we've even noted on some of the descriptions on comics and books lately, you're seeing that term used. Vader is a villain. Anti-hero, maybe the last few minutes of his life when Luke redeems him. But Vader is a villain. That's where we stand.
That's where he should be.
Yeah, that's where it should be.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. We're
the only
traditionalists.
good thing that he did in the last 40 years of his life is, get a little exercise bench pressing the Emperor over the side of a balcony, and he even, dropped him. So it wasn't even very good at weightlifting.
You've had better jokes on this show.
You're right. Okay.
That
it's been a rough day. It's been a while.
That's not your best.
We're warming up.
I do want to talk about, though, the excerpt, though, from the third Thrawn novel, because this is really cool, I think. So we know that this third installment comes out later this year, and it's an excerpt that includes the Emperor, Krennic, we have Thrawn in this conversation, and we have Tarkin. And this takes place during the final episodes of Star Wars Rebels. And so what's happening is Thrawn is losing funding for his TIE project because Krennic says he needs more for Project Stardust. And so it's like that conversation of how a deal is struck for Thrawn to get his funding back for his operation on Lothal. And so it's pretty interesting, just again, how it's written. Like I really enjoy how Timothy Zahn writes about Tarkin and how he, addresses and acts around the Emperor. Even though it's the hologram, there's like a calmness and a casualness that I think no one else other than Vader displays around the Emperor. But it's, clearly at this point, Thrawn feels comfortable enough in his position with the Empire and feels like he's owed this. But here he goes again. Krennic makes the snide comment, so Thrawn will, not come out and say it, but he's going to prove him wrong. Great excerpt. It's available right now on StarWars.com. Jesse, you haven't read the first two, but I think to get caught up, I'm going to tell you the audiobook because that's how I listened to Dooku Jedi Lost by Kevin Scott. And that is, I think, the way to listen to these, to go through these books. Yeah. Because I don't think that this is as strong of writing on the part of Timothy Zahn overall, the first two books, compared to like the Hair of the Jedi trilogy. That's not the trilogy. Why am I blanking on this? The trilogy that he wrote in the 80s, that was the one that introduced Thrawn. just not as strong. And I think that that's kind of an opinion overall. But we know that this third book is the final of this trilogy of Thrawn books. There might be more out there. But are you guys excited to hear about the opportunity to get more into that, meeting room situation, learning how these big names in the Empire kind of converse and how certain events in Rebels will play out through this book?
I like it because there's a lot of. I could go all over the place here, so I'm going to try to keep this. I'm going to try to keep this short.
Don't even have to say that. Just do.
For at least with this particular excerpt that we got and everything, what I really enjoy, because Thrawn is a Chiss, he's an alien species, and lore-wise, we know that basically the Empire is all about humans. So for him being in such a high position of power to, for one, be at this meeting, really places how much respect that he has from Tarkin as well as from the Emperor, and that's what I love. So I feel like the other people, they mentioned Admiral Savitt, in there, and you just get this feeling that there's going to be like all eyes are on the blue guy in the room kind of thing, because he's the elephant in the room. He doesn't fit, but he does fit. Like and like him and like his tactical knowledge as a character, his ruthlessness earns him the right to be there.
David, trivia question for you. What are the creatures that eat the cables in the Millennium Falcon Empire Strikes Back in the Space Worm?
I know this.
Are you serious, David?
It's been a while.
Jesse?
Minox.
Okay, so
Minox.
Garnox, I think, is what they're called in the excerpt, but they're like cousins too. They're larger beasts, and these are apparently eating at the construction of Stardust of the Death Star. And so the whole task is that we learn he's got like a day or something, and somehow Thrawn has to get rid of this situation. So that's the whole plot. Because I know you didn't read the excerpt.
I read the excerpt.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Did you like it?
I did.
Okay.
And to answer your earlier question, I'm very excited back for the backroom politics, because the Emperor took over the galaxy through politics.
Star Wars politics done right is fun.
One of the things that really jumped out to me, David, is Tarkin's introducing everybody around the room, and he says, "You may have heard of Admiral Savitt through his family's music programs on the Imperial Center." And I really like that sentence, even though it sounds like absolutely stupid. Mm-hmm. But it really shows the kind of interwoven nepotism. If you got status, you get more status and power by being in the Imperial hierarchy. And I kind of like that.
I can dig that, too. When I read that, it just kind of makes me funny. It kind of makes me funny. That's a poorly said phrase. I like it in the sense that high society gets to enjoy the art, the culture. And art and culture is something that Thrawn obviously appreciates himself.
Space operas.
But you're not seeing the farm, the moisture farmers on Tatooine aren't going in to take in an afternoon at the opera. Or, to hear, Beethoven's Fifth. It's just not happening.
Of course, they don't have the time. They're getting too much moisture to send up to the Empire.
Or not enough.
That way they can, help the Empire grow and help everybody.
I'm really excited about this because the best moments in the earlier two books in this trilogy, I think the scene with Anakin and Thrawn early on in the first book, it's kind of like a flashback. Well, it's not really a flashback. That book covers so much time. But there's also a scene there where the Emperor and Thrawn meet. And I just feel like whenever I can get Thrawn and the Emperor back together, that's where I really enjoy seeing where the story goes. Because for a character who gains so much status in the Empire to not be around during 4, 5, and 6, I think that's the tricky thing now with the Star Wars canon, because you have to... wherever they sent him off at the end of Rebels, for him to come back, it's got to be a damn good story. So excited to see how that plays out. Let us know what you think about this excerpt from Thrawn. And David, real quick.
We always like to throw out the upcoming comics, usually. So coming up July 10th, we've got Age of Resistance, Captain Phasma, continuing on with that series. Also that day is Star Wars 68. This is a new party you can jump onto. It's part 1 of Rebels and Rogues. July 17th, we've got Dr. Aphra 34, TIE Fighter 4, Star Wars Adventure Trade paperbacks coming out on the 23rd, and the 24th, Star Wars 69.
Wonderful. Let's go on to video game news, and of course we want to thank Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri for being a sponsor of the show. And it's why we love talking about comics so much, is that's where we get our comic books. We drive about 120 miles to get our comic books when we are able to visit the St. Louis area. And they have everything you need. They have the comics, they have the games, they have the Magic the Gathering, they have the miniatures, they have soda and potato chips. They have everything you need for your nerd experience. Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, St. Louis, proudly serving St. Louis since 1981. And we continue this fun conversation with Fallen Order, Jedi Fallen Order. We mentioned it earlier in the show. It's a video game coming out later this year. E3 a few weeks ago dropped some game footage. Game footage that I'm thinking of is on Kashyyyk. We can get to that specific in a while, but in case you weren't aware about this game, which I'd be hard-pressed to believe, but that's okay if you haven't, single-player role-playing game. Cal Kestis is the lead. He's a Jedi that escaped Order 66, played by Cameron Monaghan, which is exciting because he played the Joker in the Gotham series.
He also played a terrible human being in Shameless.
Okay. Fun. And again, this is the game that has the tie-in with, it's going to have a tie-in comic book series coming out shortly as well. So that's interesting. A lot of tie-ins right now. You're getting like the Alphabet Squadron crossing over. That's a novel. It's going to actually be a trilogy of books from Star Wars books. Del Rey. It's going to cross over with this TIE Fighter comic series that we've been getting from Marvel, which has been pretty enjoyable. Love, especially the color work on that run. But let's go ahead. I think the best way to start with this is just general reaction from the video. And I'll start with just throwing this out to Jesse. A lot of people are saying they think that this game is recycling a lot of what was done for 1313. Especially the ability to like run on the side of things is one example that a lot of people keep drawing to. I guess I kind of want to acknowledge that, but I don't want you to really talk about that. I just want you to focus on your general reaction. I'm thinking that the Kashyyyk video where you're seeing AT-ATs blowing up AT-ATs, you're seeing running through the woods. I love just you can actually slice stormtroopers in half, and I love that.
I watched that video a number of times. I mean, I'm probably, I think, the more avid video gamer out of the three of us. So E3 is a really big video game conference that happens every June.
We know this.
Yeah, and so this was one of the main games that was announced that I was really pumped for. So I was like, man, I really hope they give us, video footage, and we get this. And there's so many little Easter eggs in there just from, the general gameplay. I mean, you have to look for these little details, but I mean, like at one point there's a dead clone trooper tucked away like in a cave where like one of the spider monsters that you fight is there.
Oh, cool.
And then you get some of these references to like basically like these Jedi hunting, stormtroopers, and they're
those things look intense.
Yeah, so it's just like, man, like this is still like this is like right smack dab in the middle of. There are still Jedi out there that are on the run to the point that, the Empire has dedicated troops, trained to fight and combat Jedi.
And it doesn't seem like the Empire is fully transitioned from the Republic. We're still seeing some Republic-era ships, which I really like. And David, as Jesse, I think fairly said, you and I just are not as big into gaming as Jesse. We'll play the campaign, then we're pretty much done. But there were a couple things that you noticed here in this game footage and the trailer that really stuck out to you.
There is. So we know it happens kind of right after Order 66, but we also see him hanging around with an older-looking Saw Gerrera, more in the likes of Forrest Whitaker that we see in Rogue One versus the younger one that we see in Rebels.
And does it help you as a fan knowing that Whitaker is back to voice Saw Gerrera? Does that help you with like continuity?
Absolutely, 100%. I fully believe that the way you make a successful franchise is by having that continuity between voice actors, regular actors, production crews, editors, stuff like that.
It's just so fun to think of that character. The reason why I don't work for the storytelling group or those who tell the stories is because I wouldn't have thought about that. But Saw Gerrera being that thread that weaves through all these different versions of the story is really fascinating. I think the thing I'm most excited about is probably going to be wielding the lightsaber, but there seems to be some stealth involved. And again, it was only about a 12-minute clip, but
it looked fun. Like I'm hoping we're getting an anthology type game out of this, where we get to play with him at different ages, which would be kind of an interesting way to level him up without doing a traditional talent tree type thing.
Well, apparently, as the game progresses, his saber hilt goes through an evolution of some sort. Jesse, do you know what I'm talking about? Apparently, it gets longer.
That was the thing that that did kind of agitate me with the gameplay is, as this person's playing through there, you get new skill available, and they did not show like this level up system. And they did later comment saying that they didn't want to show it because, for one, this is still kind of somewhat early gameplay. But they, at the same time, they wanted it to be a surprise too. They wanted to keep some of that as like an element of surprise, which makes me happy because they're kind of, it seems like they're covering all fronts here with it. And I do agree with David. I kind of want to see certain time points. I love that Forrest Whitaker's back as Saul Guerrero because we get, this is like pre-Star Wars Rebel Saul.
He's not like really messed up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he's not completely. He's got like his armor on, but I didn't really see like a lot of like he's not missing one of his feet.
What will you become?
Yeah, so that's what the story makes me really excited. Some of the lightsaber moves, I was like, okay, this looks fun. You mentioned the wall running stuff. You know what? That's not unique to like what they showed, like, and the what was going to be 1313.
Right.
You see that in Assassin's Creed. I think what was they had some of that in like some of the newer Call of Duty, Titanfall. So this isn't like something that's just unique to like one game or anything. And maybe they borrowed some of the concept art, but that's normal in game development. I mean, if you have something that works and it's already there, the code is already there, you're gonna reuse those assets.
I'm excited either way. He's gonna be on Coruscant. We know we get some time on Kashyyyk. He's got to get there somehow, so we're gonna have some time to play in space. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think the footage only excites me more. It has me to the point where I don't want to spend the money on buying a platform, but it has me debating on if I should buy a platform, which a game hasn't done that for a very long time. I had someone who had Battlefront 2, and I got invited over. David and I got to play it, and we banged it out in 10 hours. We played the video game in 10 hours, and and then that was fine because that was one day, and I never have to do it again. Really love the campaign, which the campaign was about 4 hours longer. I'm hoping, I want this to be an experience. I want this to take me a couple of days to have to beat. I don't want to have to just.
I feel like it will take you a while. They said this is strictly a story game. No multiplayer, no microtransactions. November 15th is when this is coming out. Can we talk about a game that... Oh, did you have more?
Well, no, I was going to segue into the fact that I think a game that's going to take you forever to play is the Lego Star Wars game they're coming out with.
I was going to say that this is a game that will make me probably buy a new system.
Are you serious? The Skywalker Saga?
Uh-huh.
Because
I like the Lego. I like the Lego games in general.
You like the Lego Batman video
game
a lot.
Love the Lego Batman one.
I think it's cool. We had one for the Force Awakens, I believe. We got a Lego Star Wars for the Force Awakens. Didn't get anything for the Last Jedi. What I miss in general are the games, like the game-specific ones for the movies. Because I really like the Revenge of the Sith video game. It had an alternate ending to where Obi-Wan could kill Anakin, then you kind of see how that changes everything. But I miss that, and I miss the movie-specific games here, even for Lego Star Wars. So I think it'd be kind of fun to dance around with like a Kylo Ren, or play around in a ship with Poe, or like an old Han. But I mean, it's a toss-up for me. I've played the original trilogy, and I've played the prequel ones, and they were fine. You run around going to get your coins. I think here's what I think is going to happen for me. I'll let you buy it, David, and I'll come over on the afternoons, and we'll play together.
It'll be fun.
And it'll be fine, because you're going to spend the money, apparently.
Well, I mean, it seems like... the trailer just captures my attention. They're obviously going back to more silent gags, because nobody's talking in the trailer, but there's some fun ones, too. Like, when Luke gets his hand cut off, Vader, pulls out his Lego hand and offers it to Luke, and then it flashes to a little scene where Kylo Ren is building a snowman of Darth Vader. I'm like, that's pretty funny.
Okay, well, I'm happy for you.
I'm excited.
I think it's...
He's judging me, Jesse. He's judging me really hard.
It's just a niche audience. It really is. Because if we were getting like a bunch, if we were getting like LucasArts quality of product, where we were getting like a bunch of computer games, and there's a platform game or two every year, and then this was just one to compliment, that's great. But like this is supposed to be like the next game we're waiting for, and that doesn't get me excited.
You know what? I'm like, we're getting a serious game with Fallen Order, and then we're kind of getting a goofy one. That's more in the fun, like kid targeted or Gilbert targeted.
One and the same.
Yeah, but you know, like,
What
that's
is
fine.
same?
But like, you know,
Well, I mean, so I'm excited for it.
there was a time where we were getting like Battlefronts, and we were getting Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, and all these like just a slew of these PC games to complement the big console games. And the big console games were always like the big, you know, creme de la creme, and it's just Lego.
I think there's a couple things going on there, David. I think when we were getting a lot of those games, a lot of them were using the same engines, the same platforms to kind of rock and roll. So a lot of the graphics were the same, and it was just slapping a new skin on it. I think the other issue is we've had a lot of issues with EA since they got the contract for Disney.
I think and you are right. I think that's a very good point.
I am A-okay if we only get these couple more games and then Disney reevaluates and maybe they change away from EA and give it to Activision or someone else.
I think my dissatisfaction is, I don't know if you just saw this, they just released or they just leaked a couple of images of new Star Wars Lego sets coming out. Mm-hmm. It's another Luke's Landspeeder.
Oh, boy.
And Ben's hut. Now, we just got a Landspeeder set last year.
Yeah, it's still on the shelf out at Walmart.
And before that, it was another Landspeeder with the cantina scene. So now you're saying we're getting like 3 Landspeeders within 3 years? Now, listen, I get it. I'm 27 years old. This man is pitching a fit about his Legos. I just, you know, I look at what Lego Creator does with its sets, and they sucker me in for $150, $200 for their modular builds. I think Star Wars needs to create 2 lines. And there needs to be like a junior line, and there needs to be like that creator-esque line.
You're like me. You like certain sets for display purposes. And getting a repeat set, you know, 3 years in a row is boring, especially because from what little was leaked out, there's no change. There's no change to the build or any improvement to the design to make me want to go out and go, okay, this is better than what I had.
We'll just make our own video game. We're just gonna make our own video game, and it's gonna be stop motion Legos, and we'll see how that turns out. Okay, so the last topic it's gonna be a cluster bomb. Last topic before we get out of here, because this is our 4th of July celebration episode. It's also our chance to get together and barbecue. So we're going to be grilling steaks here in a little bit. Jordan, like I mentioned, is back in town. He got a new gig, and he's doing very well with that. We're going to learn about his experience with that. But one more topic before we roll out of here, and that is we have some new content playable for Battlefront 2.
Yes, so a whole bunch of stuff came out for Battlefront 2 recently. Naboo is now available as on the Capital Supremacy game mode, which if you've played like Battlefield games or the old Battlefront games, where this is about controlling points of contest, tongue-tied there. So you control these points, you rack up, and as you control multiple points, your team will accumulate, I think you have to get 100. Once that happens, you board drop ships, and then you basically assault the enemy capital ship, and you have to capture a few various points to destroy that ship. If you fail to do that, you bounce back down to the surface, where you repeat the process until somebody blows up the other ship. Really cool game mode. So they just brought Naboo onto this, which is really a beautiful map on Battlefront 2. You also get droidekas, finally. The Galaxy's favorite droid roly-polies.
If they could have afforded to make like 1 billion of these things, they would have won the war, no doubt.
I played probably a good 4 hours of this.
Wow.
Actually, yesterday, I've been off. I've got a 4-day week, and it's fantastic. So I was playing this, and the motion for the droidekas are just flawless. And they're kind of intimidating when you see one roll up and deploy in front of you, because they're freaking huge. They're like taller than a clone. And then you get the new, I believe it's the T-170 clone trooper tank. A lot of action. Anakin gets his Clone Wars appearance, with the armor epaulets and whatnot.
Nice.
It's really cool. So they keep adding stuff to the multiplayer. If you still haven't checked this game out and you do like third-person FPS games, you might actually want to try this out now. They're really picking up a lot of steam, and they've made some really good quality of life improvements.
Gilbert, why do you say that this whole game and EA should follow what Nintendo is doing? I feel like that's a really strange comparison.
I am just not a fan of this extra downloadable content that they keep churning out, because now we're trying to get people to play a game that came out 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I would rather have a new game come out with more content, with updated gameplay features than just take a game that they released unfinished, in my opinion, and just slowly add stuff to it every now and then. Nintendo is taking a very different approach. I don't know if you're a big Nintendo guy, but the Legend of Zelda series, they're releasing a Breath of the Wild 2 because they had so much they wanted to put in Breath of the Wild that they did not want to release downloadable content, so they're just going to release a new game. And I'd rather spend $50 and get a whole complete game than spend $50 to get a new game and then $5 this month and $5 that month and $5 this month, and they nickel and dime me. I don't like that perception.
Well, I will remind you though that these updates for Battlefront 2 are free. So once you've purchased the game, you're not paying for anything else. These are free updates.
And like for me, I don't think EA would think that someone would buy the game if they haven't already, just so they could play as General Skywalker, for example. You're buying for the story. And I think that's what they learned after the first Battlefront was that online play only lasts for so long unless you're exceptionally talented.
Yeah, with Battlefront 2015, they had what's generally called a season pass. And that was what actually I think shot Battlefront 2015 in the foot, is because they actually did put a price barrier on that. It was like $60 for that season pass. And if you didn't have it, you were stuck playing the retail fresh out of the box maps while everybody else was jumping around on Cloud City.
I really want to play as General Kenobi. I think that would be a lot of fun because I really like the look of Kenobi with his Jedi robes and the clone armor. Oh,
like it's actually, if you're playing as a droid, it's very intimidating to see Anakin and Kenobi come around the corner because like for one, the graphics in this game really are beautiful. So you're sitting there like, oh god, you're in a world of hurt when you see those two there.
I think Maul is probably still the most.
Maul is scary in this game because he's got a high movement ability, and if you don't catch it quick enough, he's going to take you down. He's going to be among your little group of clones, and you're probably going to be sliced and diced.
Well, here at Beyond the Blast Doors, we continue to push for Ahsoka Tano, Asajj Ventress, and Captain Rex.
I think it could happen. They've been really pumping out Clone Wars content for this game.
Well, we'll see. One day from some point. I think it would be really great. I think I'm at the point, though, where I would rather have Asajj because, and I bring this up because the 7th, July 7th, that's, I think, the 3-year anniversary of Dark Disciple. Great book if you haven't read it already. But I think Asajj Ventress, because of what we've learned about her through Jedi Fallen Order, I just think that there is so much want for that character. And you're always going to have people having an outcry for Ahsoka, but I think Asajj is growing in her stock, and I look forward to seeing how she is treated over the next couple of years with storytelling. Boys, we've come to the end of an episode. It's been a lot of fun. I definitely want to make sure that listening, you can't be watching this episode, but those listening this week, if you have any feedback about Jedi Fallen Order or the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga game or these updates with Battlefront 2, let us know. Not just in the comments below, but you can Facebook, Twitter, Instagram us. You can also email us at beyondtheblastdoors.com. Just to remind you again, you can always listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and SoundCloud. We do our best to go live on Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. Central, keeping in mind the summertime is our busiest time of the year, but we really are going to try and stick to that. Life happens. But either way, we are so glad that you're part of our Star Wars conversation. If you haven't already, hit subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. That helps us, and that helps you. May the Force be with you.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.